These are manufactured using a unique cold press method, ensuring the delicate balance of strawberry and matcha extracts remains potent for your skin.
Every production story begins with a promise, and in this case, the promise sounds deceptively simple. Strawberries, matcha, and a soothing eye patch designed to care for tired skin. On paper, the ingredient list reads like a cafe menu, sweet, comforting, almost innocent. Strawberry for brightness, matcha for calm, and a hydrogel base to lock everything in. But as with many modern beauty products, what looks simple at first glance becomes far more complex the moment a rumor enters the room. And this rumor whispers a single unsettling phrase: bone extract. Imagine the sourcing stage of production. Early morning at farms where strawberries are harvested at peak ripeness, chosen not for taste, but for antioxidant density. Nearby, matcha leaves are carefully shade-grown, then ground into a fine powder so vivid green it almost glows. This is the imagery brands want us to see: clean fields, ethical sourcing, nature transformed by science. Yet somewhere between these pastoral scenes and the sterile factory floor, doubt creeps in. Viewers begin to ask, is this really all that goes into the product? In the cosmetics industry, collagen is a loaded word. To some, it represents youth and elasticity. To others, it raises ethical red flags. Traditionally, collagen has been derived from animal bones, skins, and connective tissue. So, when consumers hear claims of skin plumping or firming, suspicion follows naturally. The rumor suggests that despite a plant-forward narrative, a hidden collagen source, possibly bone-derived, might be part of the formulation, quietly processed, stripped of its origins, and folded into the mix under a more palatable name. At the ingredient sourcing table, this is where the story splits into two competing realities. In one version, everything aligns with the brand's public stance. No animal derivatives, no hidden sources, only botanical extracts and lab-created alternatives that mimic collagen's effects without its origins. In the other version, the one fueled by speculation, the truth is more ambiguous. Perhaps a supplier upstream uses a raw material that once began as bone, later refined so thoroughly that its past becomes chemically irrelevant. At that point, is it still bone extract, or has it become something else entirely? The camera lingers on shipping crates labeled with scientific codes instead of familiar names. Inside are powders, gels, concentrates, ingredients that no longer resemble strawberries, tea leaves, or anything found in nature. This is where consumer trust is tested, because most people will never step inside these facilities, never audit these suppliers, never see the certificates that claim compliance. They must decide whether to believe the narrative presented to them or the doubts forming in their own minds. From a production standpoint, sourcing is about control. Each ingredient is logged, tested, verified. But from a storytelling standpoint, sourcing is about perception. The rumor thrives, precisely because this stage is invisible. It lives in the gap between what is said and what cannot be easily proven by the average consumer. And once that seed of doubt is planted, every subsequent step in the process becomes suspect. The narrator pauses here, letting the tension settle. If there truly were something to hide, this is where it would begin, not in the factory, not in the packaging, but in the origin story itself. And yet, rumors do not require proof to survive. They only require plausibility. The cosmetics industry's long history with animal-derived ingredients provides exactly that. So the question hangs in the air. Are we witnessing a clean, transparent beginning rooted in plants and modern science, or the first carefully managed layer of a more complicated truth? Is the controversy built on misunderstanding of cosmetic chemistry, or does it point to something deliberately obscured long before the product ever takes shape? As the ingredients move forward to the next stage where they will be broken down, dissolved, and transformed, the viewer is left with an uneasy realization. Once raw materials lose their original form, it becomes harder to trace their story. And if the truth is hardest to see at the beginning, what chance do we have of recognizing it later? Or perhaps the more uncomfortable question is this: do we really want to know? Or are we only listening because the rumor makes the story more interesting? If the origin of ingredients is where doubt is born, then the extraction phase is where that doubt either dissolves or deepens. This is the stage where nature is no longer recognizable, where strawberries stop being fruit and matcha stops being leaves. Everything becomes liquid, powder, or molecular fragments suspended in solution. And in this transformation, rumors find the perfect place to hide. Extraction is often presented as a triumph of modern cosmetic science. Temperature-controlled tanks, precise timing, filtered solvents, and stainless steel systems designed to isolate only what is useful for the skin. Strawberry extract is broken down to capture antioxidants and fruit acids. Matcha is steeped and filtered to obtain calming polyphenols and caffeine in controlled amounts. On the surface, it is a clean, repeatable, almost elegant process. But the more clinical it becomes, the easier it is for the human mind to imagine something slipping in unnoticed. This is where the bone extract rumor gains momentum. In the beauty industry, extraction is also the stage where collagen, if used at all, would enter the picture. Collagen derived from animal bones is not added in its raw form. It is hydrolyzed, filtered, deodorized, and broken down into peptides so small that they are chemically indistinguishable from collagen obtained through other means. By the time it reaches a mixing tank, it no longer resembles its origin in any meaningful way. And that fact alone raises a disturbing philosophical question. If you cannot identify the source through sight, smell, or function, does the origin still matter? Inside the extraction lab, ingredients are reduced to data points: pH levels, molecular weight, solubility curves. There is no room for storytelling here, only numbers and results. And yet, this hyper-rational environment paradoxically fuels emotional suspicion, because consumers are asked to trust processes they do not understand, overseen by specialists they will never meet. Labels may say plant-based or vegan-friendly, but those words rely on definitions that can feel slippery when science enters the conversation. The rumor suggests a hidden pathway, a third extract line running parallel to the strawberry and matcha streams. Not labeled, not advertised, but integrated seamlessly. According to this hypothesis, even if the final ingredient is chemically refined, its biological origin could still be animal-based. The extraction process would erase all visible evidence, leaving behind only function. Skin feels hydrated. Fine lines look smoother. Results appear. And results, for many consumers, are more convincing than ethics. But there is another perspective, one grounded not in suspicion, but in logistics. Extraction facilities operate under strict documentation requirements. Every input is tracked. Every batch can be audited. Introducing an undisclosed animal-derived extract would not only violate brand identity, but also expose the company to regulatory and legal risk. From a purely operational standpoint, the rumor seems inefficient, even irrational. Why risk everything for an ingredient that can be replaced by plant-based alternatives or biotech synthesized compounds? And yet, rumors rarely care about efficiency. They thrive on the idea that companies prioritize performance over principles. That, when faced with a choice between visible results and abstract ethics, they will quietly choose results, assuming no one will ever know. The extraction phase, hidden behind lab doors and technical language, becomes the perfect stage for this narrative. The camera glides over filtration membranes, centrifuges spinning at high speed, clear liquids dripping into collection vessels. Nothing here looks sinister. Nothing looks organic. Everything looks sanitized, neutral, controlled. And that neutrality is unsettling. Because if something questionable were happening, would it look any different? The narrator lowers their voice. At this point in the process, even experts would struggle to identify the origin of an extract without documentation. Consumers, removed even further, must rely entirely on trust. Trust in labels, trust in certifications, trust in the idea that transparency is not just a marketing word, but a practice. Still, the question refuses to disappear. If extraction is capable of erasing origins, then ethical debates shift from what is used to what is claimed. And that is a dangerous shift, because claims live in language, not chemistry. They can be framed, softened, reinterpreted. So, as the extracts are finalized and prepared for the next stage, ready to be combined, shaped, and solidified, the tension remains unresolved. The science appears sound. The procedures appear standard. But the rumor lingers, not because of evidence, but because of possibility. And that leads us to the next unsettling thought. Once everything is fully extracted and mixed, will there be any way left to tell what was truly inside from the beginning? Or is this the moment where the truth, whatever it may be, becomes permanently diluted, just another ingredient in a perfectly balanced formula? After extraction, the process enters a phase that feels almost magical to the observer. Formation. This is where invisible liquids become something you can touch, something you can place under your eyes and feel working against your skin. The hydrogel stage is not just a technical step, it is a symbolic one, because whatever truth or compromise existed earlier is now locked into a physical form. And once that form is created, it becomes much harder to question what lies inside. Hydrogel technology is often described as advanced, even futuristic. At its core, it is a network of polymers designed to hold water and release active ingredients slowly over time. In marketing language, it is soothing, cooling, luxurious. In manufacturing reality, it is a precise balance of chemistry, temperature, and timing. Too firm, and it becomes uncomfortable. Too soft, and it falls apart. Every variable must be controlled. According to official narratives, the hydrogel used in these eye patches is plant-derived. Cellulose-based polymers, natural gums, or fermented sugars are common in vegan formulations. But the rumor introduces a competing idea: gelatin. Gelatin, traditionally derived from animal bones and connective tissue, has been used for decades to create flexible gels. It is cheap, effective, and familiar to manufacturers. The uncomfortable question is not whether gelatin could work, but whether it might be quietly preferred for its reliability. In the formation room, large mixing vats hum softly as extracts are blended with the gel base. At this point, everything is opaque. The strawberry extract no longer smells like fruit. The matcha no longer resembles tea. And if there were any animal-derived component present, it would be indistinguishable to the human senses. The gel does not carry memory. It carries function. This is where technology begins to feel like both ally and accomplice. On one hand, modern cosmetic science allows brands to avoid animal products entirely, recreating textures and performance through plant-based or synthetic alternatives. On the other hand, that same sophistication makes it easier to hide origins behind performance. If two gels feel identical on the skin, does their origin matter to the user? And if the user cannot tell the difference, who is responsible for asking the question? The molds are lined up, identical in shape and size. Liquid gel is poured in, cooled, and set. The result is smooth. Translucent patches that look clean, almost pure. They inspire trust. There is something about physical perfection that disarms skepticism. It becomes harder to believe that something controversial could exist inside something that looks so calm, so controlled. The narrator pauses on this visual contrast. The most advanced technology does not look dramatic, it looks quiet. And quiet processes rarely invite scrutiny. Consumers tend to focus on results, how the patch feels, how the skin looks afterward. Very few will question the molecular history of the gel, pressed gently under their eyes. Yet this is precisely where the ethical tension peaks, because once the hydrogel is formed, the product becomes emotionally real. It is no longer a list of ingredients or a rumor online. It is something you hold in your hand. And if there was a hidden compromise earlier in the process, this is the moment it becomes permanent. From a regulatory standpoint, the hydrogel stage offers no easy answers. Testing can confirm safety, stability, and performance, but not moral origin. Certifications depend on documentation, not detection, which means the entire system rests on honesty upstream. And honesty in a competitive industry is always under pressure. The camera lingers on racks of newly formed eye patches, cooling in controlled environments. Everything appears orderly, predictable, professional. The viewer is left with an unsettling realization. If something questionable were embedded here, it would now be impossible to remove without destroying the product entirely. So the question sharpens. Is this stage proof that the process is exactly as claimed? Clean, plant-based, transparent? Or is it the most effective disguise of all? A technological finish so refined that it neutralizes suspicion through beauty and comfort. As the hydrogel sets and the product moves forward, one truth becomes unavoidable. Whatever the answer, it is no longer fluid. It has taken shape. And if doubts still exist now, will the next stage, testing and packaging, be enough to resolve them? Or will it only seal the mystery even tighter? Once the hydrogel eye patches have taken shape, the process enters what should be its most reassuring phase: testing and packaging. This is the moment brands often point to when defending their integrity. Lab coats, clipboards, quality control charts, regulatory checklists. These symbols are meant to communicate safety, professionalism, and accountability. And yet, in the shadow of an unresolved rumor, even this final safeguard begins to feel ambiguous. Testing in cosmetic production is rigorous, but also narrowly focused. Microbial safety, skin irritation, stability over time, temperature tolerance, these are the priorities. Samples are pulled from each batch and subjected to weeks of observation. Any sign of contamination or instability triggers rejection. On paper, this is where trust should be restored. A product that passes all tests is, by definition, safe to use. But safety is not the same as transparency, and this distinction is where doubt quietly survives. If there were a hidden animal-derived component, this stage would not necessarily expose it.
But look how
Modern
hydrated
tests
I am.
are designed to detect risk,
you do look
not
glowing.
origin.
I'll give you that.
They ask, will this harm the skin? Will it degrade? Will it grow bacteria? They do not ask, where did this molecule come from originally? And that realization
use those
unsettles the
iPads
viewer,
tonight?
because it means that even the most thorough quality control cannot resolve ethical questions.
matcha.
It can only confirm performance. Packaging follows, and with it, the power of language. Labels are printed, claims are finalized. Vegan, cruelty-free, plant-based inspired. Each phrase carries weight, yet each depends on definitions that most consumers never read in full. Packaging is not just a protective layer, it is a narrative tool. It tells the story the brand once remembered, while quietly excluding the details that complicate that story. The rumor, at this stage, faces